Hey YouTube, it's Master, and this is my second deck of the Dragonstrike Infernus format. This is the Dragonstrike Infernus form of I Predict a Dragon, which I posted back a long time ago before Dragonstrike Infernus came out, and that build was working really well for me, and I really liked it. But I wanted to post the update of what I had during Dragonstrike Infernus. I'll be updating this deck again, most likely in Clash of the Duel Masters, especially when we get Infernus the Immolator, instead of just Infernus the Awakened. So, I'm going to get right into it, and here's the deck. Got 3 Infernus the Awakened, 3 Hammer Dragon Foulbyrn, 2 Tatsurion the Unchained, 3 Hyperspeed Dragon, 3 Herald of Infernus. I still need to get the promos. Just thought of that. And 2 Dragon's Breath. The water section is 3 Nyx, 3 Bottle of Wishes, 3 Crystal Memory, 3 Logo Scan, and 3 Predict. Now there's a light section in this build, just because there are enough light dragons that I just had to include them, even though they don't get fast attack. Obviously Andromeda, 3 of Andromeda, 3 Lyra, 3 Lux because it gives me another bird that's really good, and 2 Stormspark Blast. I know I'm contradicting myself from my Water Darkness Light control in using 2 Stormspark Blast, because I had earlier said that taking one out doesn't really change the balance of the deck that much, and it's not worth it. But this build is a little more aggro-oriented. It has no blockers. It's supposed to get dragons out early, beat the Skull Shatter. If you shatter me, it's not supposed to be a huge deal. It would hurt, but I'm not supposed to be terribly concerned in this deck. I mean, that's what the Hyperspeeds are for, the Heralds are for. Hammer Dragon Foulbyrn should come out 1 to 2 turns before you can even get off a Skull Shatter, and that's the whole reason that this deck is supposed to make it against Water Darkness Light control, even with the lack of discard in the Dragon Mirror. It just really works out well for me. Just having 2 Stormspark Blast is enough. I don't need the 3rd. Light was originally just a splash in this, by the way. I splashed Stormspark Blasts and Andromedas, I think, just so that I could hardcast Andromeda, and Stormspark Blast would give me the mana to do it. But I decided to change it up, use Lux, because Lux is amazing, and it really helps this deck. Now, I want to talk about the Predict versus Bottle of Wishes problem. It does happen sometimes that Bottle of Wishes will hit a Predict, and it's obviously no fun that Bottle of Wishes shuffles the deck, so Predict and Bottle of Wishes don't work that well together. But, I mean, it's balanced that way. I can't just look at the top 4 and then say I'm going to play it for free. That's like saying I'm going to play any dragon in my deck that happens to show up in the top for 6 mana. And it's just really weird like that. But I'm still sticking by Predict being a really good card. It lets me see everything I need to see, and I can predict a dragon. That's the whole point. Foulbyrn works really well with it. If I'm going to draw something bad, I can switch it around. And you really have to think with this deck about the order you're going to put them back in, what you're going to do, and all of that. It can get really tricky, but it's really fun that way. And just Bottle of Wishes on its own in here is really, really good. I have a lot of dragon targets, and even if I hit a Firebird, that's useful. It helps me play dragons from my hand easier, gives me dragon support, If I hit one of my water spells, I get to draw or search my deck. The only real problem is when I hit a predict, because it costs 1, and it's really not worth getting. But even then, if I needed a predict, I get a predict. Like if there's a Foulbyrn on board, next turn I'm going to get something good off Foulbyrn, you know? And it just always works. There's no target in this deck that it won't play, and a lot of times you'll get a dragon, because there are a lot of dragons in this deck, and that just works out really well for you. I think that's the biggest thing, is that conflict there. Just going to talk about these. I was advised to use these over Barrage, and I kind of agree with it. I'm never really going to play Barrage or Dragon's Breath out of my hands. If it gets that late in the game against a rush deck, it's, you know, already too late for rush, pretty much. So Dragon's Breath is just rush deterrent with shields. And then the ways I have to cheat my dragons onto the field, I've got 3 Herald of Infernus, I've got 3 Hammer Dragon Foulbyrn, and then obviously I just went over it, but Bottle of Wishes, got 3 of those as well. Just 9 different cards that get dragons onto the field easier. Typical combo with Herald of Infernus is obviously to go into Lyra the next turn, and then attack with the Herald of Infernus. I'm going to be having some fun playing around with combos in the next set, like Fight, I think it's called. It'll let me make Herald and your random Firebird or something battle each other. Herald will win, and then in comes Infernus or Andromeda. It's going to be really fun to play around with. It's going to be nice to have Infernus the Immolator. We'll see what the other cards do, see if there are any other dragons I want to put in this deck. But obviously the main combo still stands of Hyperspeed and Foulbyrn being ridiculously good together. The deck hits more dragons now than it did before because of the inclusion of light, but obviously the light dragons don't get the ability from Hyperspeed. They just come in and use their ridiculously good enter the battlefield abilities, and they're still worth having. It's ridiculous. But typically Predict does its job, and I don't have to worry about that, because Predict will let me set the top of my deck to whatever Foulbyrn wants it to be. I have actually had cases where I had a Foulbyrn predicted into 2 Foulbyrns and some random card and another dragon. And then, boom, that's pretty much the end of the game. Stormspark Blast is pretty much your only hope at that point. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this deck. I will have a deck list in the description, and I hope you guys will stick around to watch the updated version in Clash of the Duel Masters. Thanks for watching, guys, and have a nice day.